and welcome to another proverbial episode of We Only Look Thin. I am Katherine Weigel. I am one of your hosts. I have lost 130-something pounds. I can't remember right now. I am a Tiny Habits certified coach. I am excited to be here with you today. And with me also today is...
Donald Weigel, and I have lost about 100 pounds, and I am also excited to be here. I am not a certified Tiny Habits coach, but my excitement is not diminished by that fact.
Let's get all the disclaimers out there.
I am still pumped to be here.
That's good.
You know how some people pump up the volume?
Yeah.
I pump up the excitement.
Both? You do both pumps?
I do both, exactly.
Oh, thanks. Well, today we are going to take you on a journey across the seas.
Ooh, the seas. That sounds exotic.
Yeah. I'm not going to Google how to get there, but we're going to take you to Greece.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say the islands of Greece, but I'm not actually sure where Aristotle lived.
No. And when you think about Greece, you might think about the sanctuary of Delphi.
Oh, sure.
Or perhaps Greek plays or Greek philosophy, which we're going to get into. You might also think about Greek dressing or Greek theaters. You might have a Greek theater in your town. You might think of Grecian formula. Sure. Which is also like a big thing.
Yeah. No, that's immediately what people think
from
of.
Greece. But you may also think of the very popular 1980s movie Grease, which is spelled slightly differently.
Well, and here's the thing. I am many things. A super great speller is not one of them.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I wasn't sure. I was like, wait, is this about Grease? Or is it like a Mamma Mia situation? Or is it... But it's Sandy and Danny. We all love Sandy and Danny, don't we?
Yeah, my sisters sure did when I was a kid. We had a VHS copy of that and of the movie Girls Just Want to Have Fun and the movie Annie. We had those on VHS, and I can't even tell you, it must be hundreds of times those three movies got played when my sisters were little.
Well, here's the question, because I saw Grease at sleepovers.
Yeah.
So I was doing the hand jive.
Yeah,
I think I might have seen it at a drive-in theater. Did you watch?
It's a little known fact, the hand jive burns more calories than you might think. It's neat. And
if you were born to hand jive,
you can burn calories doing the hand jive. It's true.
Did you actually watch it? I love.
Yeah, no, I saw it. I think I only watched it one time. I mean, I watched bits of it in passing because it was on our television so much at home, over and over again. But I really think I only sat down to watch it all the way through one time.
Interesting. Were you into the Bobby Sox Sandy version of Olivia Newton-John?
Oh, no, her at the end, for sure.
The end version?
Yeah.
The transformation to appease the guy and then flying off in a car for some reason.
Yeah.
As you do.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't send a great message to young women, I think, if we're really going to dive into it.
Well, the 80s had a very different idea of positive transformation.
For sure. But she wore leather pants at the end, which I enjoyed.
She did. But also, Olivia Newton-John recently passed away.
Oh, yeah.
Which was very sad. She was super awesome. And also Xanadu.
Yeah.
Did you watch Xanadu?
I saw Xanadu once also. I thought that was significantly less good.
It was less good, but the music is amazing.
Is that what people say? That something's less good?
Less good.
I think
music is amazing. The theme doesn't hold up as well.
Yeah.
It's just a roller disco nightmare, frankly, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. I don't remember the plot very well. I just remember there's another dimension that involves roller skating or something.
Which I was never good at. But speaking of other dimensions, we're taking you into the dimension of philosophy.
After spending 47 minutes discussing the movie Grease, that's not what we're here to talk about.
We're changing the spelling.
We're decidedly not here to talk about the movie Grease. We're here to talk about ancient Greece.
Yep, this is a job for Letterman. We are taking out the A and adding another E. And but adding an A in Aristotle there.
Oh, wow. Man, you've done it again.
I've done it again. But we're going to Aristotle today.
Yeah.
We're coming in with some philosophy. So buckle up, everybody. Put on your tweed jackets with your patches on the elbows. because we're going to talk philosophy.
Now, you were recently, I don't want to hijack what you're about to say, but I'm going to anyway. You were recently listening to a Gretchen Rubin episode, right? And that's where this came up?
Yeah, I think so. She loves her proverbs and that kind of thing. And she talked about one swallow not making a spring.
Yeah. And like there's an Aristotle quote, which has been, look, I'm an uber nerd. I went down this whole rabbit hole of like reading the origin of this Aristotle quote and how there's like arguments about the right translation of it.
And me staring off into the distance was my idea of getting in some neat.
Catherine went inside to her mind palace while I was talking about it, so she didn't have to listen to
thinking
the full...
about spanakopita instead of
and Greek yogurt. Yeah. Oh, that's another thing, Greek yogurt. Yeah, no, I didn't bring up. I eat lots of Greek yogurt. Yeah.
So why don't you finish what you were going to say?
Oh, well, here. Do you want me to read the quote? So.
Sure.
The quote, as it's translated sometimes, is, "One swallow does not a summer make, nor one fine day. Similarly, one day or brief time of happiness does not make a person entirely happy."
The end.
The end. So, if you didn't quite follow that, the idea behind that quote is that, when you see the first bird of spring, that doesn't necessarily mean that spring is here. And just because you have a brief period of happiness in your life doesn't mean you're going to be happy forever. And as that translates to weight loss and fitness, just because you think you've got it all figured out doesn't mean it's going to stay that way.
Doesn't mean you have it all
forever.
Bring it up. So I'm going to bring up another A in history.
Another A?
Yeah. I'm going to bring up
Aces High.
Our chum Aesop.
Oh, Aesop.
Aesop?
Yeah.
Aesop?
I don't know.
So
Aesop.
Many fables. I have something terrible to share. Can I share something terrible?
Yeah, please. There's nothing better than you sharing terrible things on a recorded podcast.
One of the Aesop fables is, I think there's like a fox and a crane, and they're trying to invite one another over for dinner, but the crane needs has a long beak, so needs a big thing to eat out of, and the fox gives him like a short bowl so he can't eat, and vice versa.
Yeah, something like that. I just remember somebody putting pebbles into a bottle to get water out.
Yeah, so it's better to work together and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But our daughter put on fake press-on nails the other day. That were like 2 inches long.
Oh, I see where you're going.
And she couldn't.
They were huge.
Yeah,
she ordered them online with her own money. I was very proud of her, for not asking us to buy them.
Yeah, and so we were going to have dinner, and she was trying to get a fork out of our fork tray.
Yeah.
And she, like the crane in Aesop's fable, could not pick up a fork.
Get a fork out of,
I felt so
out
bad.
of our silverware drawer.
I'm very bad mom, but I just was immediately all Aesop up in there.
Yeah,
so I helped
the
her
nails
out,
did not stay on very long. She was all happy with them for about 47 seconds.
Press on and then peel off very quickly. But I digress as usual.
You sure do. Yeah, that's not like us to digress on this show.
Okay, but actually I'm going to bring up Aesop. I don't know how to pronounce it. So he has a fable. So this is all about
and it was
Proverbs.
allegedly inspired by that Aristotle quote.
Yeah. So Aesop's fable tells the tale of a young man who, in seeing a swallow, assumed that spring had arrived.
Yep.
And sold his winter coat to get money to spend on the pleasure, which I'm assuming are like flip-flops.
Yeah, well, he spent money on pleasure, which for me equals like candy or something.
Yeah, so unfortunately for him, the swallow had mistaken a spell of unusually sunny weather for spring and had returned too early from its winter migration. When the cold weather returned, the young man regretted the sale of his coat, realizing spring had not come after all.
Yeah, you're really using some different voices there with that.
I don't know. I got your Casey Kasem.
That was all over the place, but essentially the young man thinks spring is coming, sells his coat, and then it's not really spring, and he pays the price in the form of being chilly.
The coatless price.
Yes, the coatless price.
I don't know.
Exactly.
But so how does this relate to weight loss and fitness?
I think the listeners are dying to know, and I'm dying to know too.
Yeah, so I will start with my own fable. I don't know, dude.
Is that how they pronounce it where you come from?
Sure, yeah. Okay.
New Jersey?
Yeah, New Jersey.
Yeah.
So New Jersey's a fine state, by the way.
Yeah.
You might have lived there also.
I love New Jersey. That wasn't a knock on New Jersey. That was a knock on you saying fable.
Fable. It's the French
You're
version.
as American as you and me.
I am.
or something.
Yeah, okay.
apple pies.
Okay, so a few years ago, let's pretend it was a few years ago.
Yeah.
I decided to start lifting weights.
Oh, yeah.
And I bought some 2-pound weights. Actually, you might have bought them for me. It was during the pandemic, I think. You went on
we went, oh man, weights were hard to get early in the pandemic. They were difficult.
They were. So I got some 2-pound weights. We don't know how they got here, either by Swallow or Donald's eBay account.
Right, they were carried with the Monty Python thing. Like, what is the velocity of an unladen swallow?
Unladen.
Yeah. Well, because a swallow might have carried those coconuts.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so it never occurred to me that that's what laden
Yeah,
meant.
if you haven't seen Monty Python and a Holy Grail,
just go back.
None of that makes sense.
It's
but
fine.
Anyway, it's a great movie.
Wow, we are digressing.
Yeah,
I'm going to go back and say it's a digressional episode.
Let's talk about weight loss and fitness.
Okay, so I got the 2-pound weights, and at first they were so hard to use. I could barely lift my arms. I was like Pee Wee Herman in Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
That's right.
One arm extension, and I was spent.
Yeah.
But then very quickly, I went up to 3 pounds.
Yep.
And then finally we went on a mission to Target and got like all these different weights.
Oh,
we
yeah.
got 5 pound, 8 pound, and finally 10 and 12 pound weights. And those 2-pound weights, I said, ha ha ha. 2-pound weights.
Yeah.
I shall never use you again.
When will I need those
When
again?
will I ever need those again?
I am a power lifter at this point.
I am. And at one point I was actually up to doing 12 pounds, which was really cool. I was like, I'll keep the 8s around. But I really thought, you know what? I should get rid of the 2-pound weights. I'm going to throw them out the door and just see what happens, because I had hubris. Wasn't he a philosopher also? I don't even know. With hubris at my side.
Yeah, hubris is like having so much I mean, people know what hubris is, right? But you have so much pride that it leads to your downfall.
Yeah. So
or so much overconfidence.
Yeah. They were like, I'll never need these again. But I was, luckily, my laziness superpower hit home, and I just kept them, and they collected dust for a while because I was like, I'm never going to use these again. I'm fixed forever. Do you see where this is going, everybody?
Yeah.
And then I got out of the habit of lifting weights. I honestly don't remember what happened. Life changed, went into different focuses. And then my noodle arms returned.
Yeah.
And I was grateful to have kept the
Return of the Noodle Arms.
And I decided,
I love that movie.
I was like, oh, I am very glad that I kept the 2-pound weights, because sometimes I'm going to need them. So anyway, the bottom line is I'm super awesome because I did not get rid of the 2-pound weights. And more recently, I have returned to lifting weights, and the 2 pounds, even in some exercises, feel hard to lift. So I did not sell that jacket. I kept them. And this is the analogy that we are now, 50 minutes into the episode, going to be making about our health journeys. We often confuse success for a permanent change, but then conversely, we also see a setback as proof that we are not capable of change.
Yeah, and look, the bottom line here is you're in this for the long haul. Like, this is your whole life. This isn't a sprint to a finish line and then you're fixed and done. This also isn't I've had a terrible day, so I'm ruined forever and I'm never going to get this right. Like, neither of those situations or things are true. And I think I said this recently on the podcast, you know, there are different seasons in your life. There was a season at the beginning of the pandemic where I was at home. I couldn't go to work. I was at home all the time, and I got into really, really good shape. At least really, really good shape for me. And I was lifting the weights and doing push-ups all the time and strength training and planks and all the things. And right now, I am back at work for a couple of years now, and I don't remember the last time I did any of those things. And I thought at one point I was just always going to be the guy who did those things. And, you know, I'm at a season right now where I have not been able to fit those things in, and I have to fit in other things. And, you know, it doesn't mean that I'm broken. It doesn't mean that, you know, that everything's ruined. I just have to meet myself where I am right now and do the things that I can do right now.
Yeah. And I think too, you know, just tying this into different seasons of our lives, if we take in the literal seasons, we have different tools and different, you know, kinds of clothing that we wear depending on the time of the year. We've got our winter gear and our summer gear. Today, it's actually it's only like 68 degrees right now. It's still August. I'm suddenly like sweater weather and pumpkin spice lattes, but it's going to be in the 90s next week.
Yeah.
So for me, just to suddenly, wear sweaters all the time, it's not going to happen. But I think when we think about our health journeys as having a spectrum of tools and resources to use, depending on the season that we're in, it really matters, because so often I would just see a setback as proof of failure permanently, instead of just seeing it as a blip. And oftentimes when we succeed too, we think suddenly we're fixed and now we can just go back to old bad habits again. And that's how I kept losing and regaining the same weight over and over again, because I saw things as a beginning or an end to something definitively.
Yeah. And I went through this cycle, I'm sort of just paraphrasing what Catherine just said, but I went through this cycle over and over again in my life where I would start, a plan like Weight Watchers or Atkins or something, and I might stick to it and do it for, a few days, a few weeks, a few months. And I would think that I was on the right track, and I would think that I was fixed. But there would come a point where I would have a bad day or a bad weekend, and I would suddenly just throw up my hands and go, well, this is proof that I'm never going to get it, and I'm never going to be fixed. And so I guess I just shouldn't do nothing. And I would go back to eating, all the food and doing none of the exercise and just sitting all the time.
As revenge, yeah.
As revenge. And, who I was getting revenge on, I don't know. Me in some way, digging myself deeper into a hole that later I had, harder time getting out of. And that was the pattern over and over and over again.
Yeah. And, from studying statistics in university.
Oh,
we learned about
so fancy.
We learned about outliers. There's always going to be these, these things that don't fit into the averages. And when we see one blip as proof, we're not seeing the big picture. Like Donald said, I had a pattern of doing Weight Watchers for 6 weeks, losing weight every week, being convinced that I was finally fixed. And then I would randomly be up on the scale a week. I would be so angry and see it as proof that I couldn't lose weight that I would quit. And I did that over and over again until I was up the scale 100 pounds. But instead of seeing a single gain as part of the process, I saw it as proof of failure. And so it works both ways. We can either see one magical whoosh in weight loss as proof that that's how much we're going to lose every week, and we can be overconfident.
Yeah.
Or we can see one setback as, a complete shattering of our confidence. So what we're asking you to do is look at those spectrum of choices and the spectrum of seasons in your life and take them all into account as part of your lifestyle, not as just proof that you're either a winner or a loser.
Yeah. And we say all the time, there is no finish line in this. And what we mean by that is that there isn't like a finite diet that you go on for a little while and then you get to a goal weight and then you can go back to the way it was. This is a process. And I used to think that all the time. And I thought that when I hit my goal weight, that then I could relax and just do whatever I wanted. And that led to weight regain all of the time. And, I've now adjusted that to understand that I have to keep doing a lot of the same things, most of the same things that I did when I was losing weight, all over and over again, and be consistent about it. But that doesn't mean that I have to do exactly the same things all of the time. I can switch it up and I can adjust depending on my life circumstances at that time.
Yeah. And I think too, part of this is just really looking at all of the different aspects of our lives and focusing on our identity, not our ideals. I used to have this ideal vision of I'm going to do a diet and I'm going to lose weight and then go back to my old habits. I just saw it as a process to get to the magical weight where I would magically have a new metabolism and just be able to maintain it. But, and no wonder I failed at this so many times. I know I had heard about lifestyle changes, and I would always just be like, yeah, whatever. Okay. Like, sure, man. Like,
yeah.
I'm sure. But now seeing it as, oh, I am designing my life in a way to accommodate setbacks and the successes. And just as we have different seasons of being at home for COVID and then being out and about and the world is opening back up, I have talked about gaining this year because I have opened up the world and my mouth more often than I did before. But understanding that I have the opportunity to go back to basics and use those, emotional 2-pound weights and those actual 2-pound weights in my life, it doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It means that I'm adapting to my situation. And when we look at our identity and that lifestyle, mumbo jumbo, it gives us the opportunity to not see ourselves as a person who does Weight Watchers, but as a person who manages what they eat. I identify as someone who feels better when they eat foods that fill them and bring them happiness, but don't sabotage them.
And I think that it is a difficult idea. It's a difficult pill for people to swallow. The idea that you have to adjust your lifestyle in order to maintain health and fitness. I think that people think that means, oh, I have to be super hardcore all the time. I can't ever slip up and I can't ever make a mistake. And I have to stick to this very, very strict plan. But what we're talking about, though, is adjusting your identity of yourself to be somebody who is a fit and healthy person, and not saying to yourself, well, I'm a couch potato, so I just can't do this. Or, I grew up in this kind of household, so I can't do this. Or I'm from this ethnicity, and our people just can't do it. But rather adjusting your thoughts about yourself that you are the kind of person who is healthy and fit. And that doesn't mean being perfect. And that doesn't mean, doing what a, strength trainer, professional bodybuilder does all the time, or a marathon runner does all the time. But that means adjusting your lifestyle to be the healthy, fit person that you can be within the bounds of your real life.
100%. And that ideal thing threw me off for years. I would go on Pinterest and see amazing salads in jars. And I would identify as somebody who made salad jars every day. And that would work for a week. And I'd think, oh, this is my identity.
Why are people trapping those poor salads in jars anyway?
But the next week, I would be, all right, I'm the salad jar gal now. I'm like Spoon Man, but for jars and salads. And then the next week, this lettuce would go bad, or I would have a busy week at work and I couldn't make it. And then I would be crushed that I wasn't salad girl now, like the superhero that we all know. And nobody is excited to see salad girl come by.
No, you can't make friends with salad girl.
No, but seeing the ideal as okay, maybe every once in a while when all the things are going well, I can do that. But changing your identity to be, I adapt to the situation. And sometimes I make salads, and sometimes I buy bagged lettuce, and sometimes a baby carrot counts as a salad. Having that range of good, better, best is much better than if I can't have perfect, then I'm not going to do anything. And I did this with arm weights. I did it with food. And I'm also realizing that I'm doing it with clothing also, which is tough. There was an episode early on in Molt, I don't remember which one, but I made a joke that, if I ever, go up in size, I'll just wear a wine barrel instead of buy new clothes as punishment for, going outside of my range.
Yeah.
And I am actually really sorry that I said that. When we started the podcast, we had both just hit our weight loss goals, or we're just about hitting our weight loss goals.
Yeah, and we're still learning. It's been nearly 5 years of doing this podcast now. Can you believe that? It's nearly 5 years.
That's bananas.
I know. And we, we're still learning along the way. And, it is okay to let go of that idea of, I thought, well, I need to get rid of all of these clothes because if I keep some different sizes, it's going to give me permission to grow back into them.
Yeah. And So at the time I was saying, if I ever get above this size, then, it's like cancel the podcast, finish everything, when really our season of life has changed. I'm in perimenopause now. My activity levels have changed. I'm older. My hips hurt. I'm not running. Like, I know I'm making myself sound like a rundown jalopy, but before, when we first started out, it was sort of like, stay this size or I will punish you.
Right.
And life has changed a little bit. I'm up on the scale. I'm still down like 130, 135 pounds. But shaming myself to stay the size that I'm in, it isn't realistic. And this is something that we've talked about in Walt Place. We Only Look Thin Place. Our weight loss and accountability group is, I'm not sure I have the perfect answer for how many sizes of clothing should you keep in your closet. We had one woman in the group say that she had between sizes 4 and 20 in her closet, and it was bringing her a lot of shame to have those smaller sizes, but she couldn't bear to get rid of them. For me, I had to buy a couple of pairs of larger shorts to wear because things were getting tight. I bought a larger bathing suit that fits really well, and I'm happy for it. But it's that, I'm not really sure. Am I enabling having habits that aren't fitting my goals? Or am I accommodating myself to make myself feel better in my clothing so that I am better able to manage my goals?
Yeah, and I think it's a hard tightrope to walk. But I wanted to read something from one of the members of Walt Place, Nicole, who's a member of Walt Place,
Walt Chum, Weigel Chum,
half marathon star, Walt Chum, Life Chum. And she's been maintaining her weight for quite a long time. And she wrote something recently in Walt Place that I really liked that is part of this topic. She says, I was up 10 to 15 from my original goal from mid-2016 to mid-2018. I never fully got rid of larger sizes. I keep about 3 sizes on hand, then and now. When things are going great, maybe I can go down and fit in a 6, or maybe today I need a 10. Having a range of sizes available to me is always helpful, since every season of life is different. I literally have the same shorts in 3 sizes. Even through 8 years of maintenance, I've never been one to subscribe to the get rid of everything doctrine. Nothing in life is final.
And that is mic drop, golf clap, all in one.
That's some serious mindset adjustment. That is to me, that is a really healthy mindset attitude towards the whole thing.
Yeah. And I don't know that I ever really saw my clothing as part of that spectrum. It was like, okay, we'll keep the weights at the 2-pound weights and the 12-pound weights. But clothing was sort of, I'm either good or bad. And frankly, that has been really hard for me. And I think in the group, a lot of people struggle with that self-worth being tied to what you can fit into at this point. And I ended up buying a t-shirt that I really love. It's from MTV. They played music videos for about a year.
Yeah.
Back in the 1900s.
Yeah, 1900s, right.
In the 1900s. And I bought it in a larger size recently because I love the shirt, but it's really snug on me right now. So I bought it in a larger size, and I posted in the group, and this is what brought up the conversation of, I do my best when I feel good about myself, and punishing myself in a smaller shirt that makes me uncomfortable. That's not a great way to feel confident. It's not a great way to feel motivated. But buying the shirt in a larger size, I'm not buying a whole new wardrobe, but it actually makes me feel really good to wear it. And this week I've been back on my habits. I've been eating at my deficit. I've been really strong. And I think giving myself permission to use that different size to make me feel good, and the larger bathing suit that I bought, I swam 5 days this week instead of no days because my swimsuit was too tight. So really looking at the spectrum that you have for success, it really matters in all of this.
And walking around in clothes that make you, uncomfortable, that are too tight, that make you feel shame, is not a way to get yourself motivated to be healthy. Like I don't think anybody in the end is ever motivated by shame or has ever hated themselves thin, like Catherine likes to say. And feeling good about yourself. And, BJ Fogg talks about that in Tiny Habits. Speaking of being a Tiny Habits certified coach, feeling good about yourself is one of the keys to change in the right direction.
Well, and to looking at, it's not like you have a toolbox that just has a hammer in it. And if you can't use the hammer, you're not building a house. We have so many different spices in life.
Spices are the spice of life.
Spices are the spice of life. But we use different tools in different situations. And knowing, when we first get into a program, we might be super excited about it and feel really passionate. And there's that high level of like that hedonic, like rush of the evangelical new subscriber to something. But knowing now after doing this for 5 years, I've had issues with my feet where I haven't been able to walk. I had a knee issue. We've had family crises. We've had a pandemic that changed the circumstance. Oh my gosh, I'm going to my HIIT classes every day. This is never going to stop. It's going to be awesome forever. And then the pandemic happens and nobody can go to a gym for 2 years. If we just see ourselves in the identity of the gym rat or the gym mouse or the gym, I don't know. Right. Gym rat isn't a bad thing. But if we see ourselves as, okay, I'm doing keto, I'm doing Atkins, I do Weight Watchers, and then that plan shifts or fails us or suddenly it disappears because the program isn't available, then we don't have anything to fall back on. But when we identify as active people who enjoy getting in non-exercise activity thermogenesis, finding ways to fit in fitness, finding ways to make healthier food choices, making policies around the foods that we eat. It's a whole constellation of choices that make up our identity instead of, okay, we're selling all the lower weights because I'm never going to need to go back. We're getting older. Our bodies are getting older. Our capabilities are changing with age.
Yep.
And leaving ourselves available to the chance of change in the future, maybe we'll have a setback. Maybe we'll have more successes. But if it's either on or off, if it's either spring or winter, that's not what life is like. And the more we can adapt to the season that we're in, the better our mindsets will be and the more long-term success we will have because we don't see it as, well, it's over. No time for that. Just as you wouldn't wear ski clothes at the beach in summer, nor would you wear a bikini up at the Black Diamond slope snow thing.
There are some skiing movies from the 80s that would beg to differ.
Hot dog.
Yes, exactly. There were lots of bikini skiing back in the 80s.
All right. Well, you can fix that in post.
And as much as I would like to end on the notion of bikini skiing in this episode, I wanted to make one more point, which is I have only recently discovered that a lot of people are sort of using the idea of there is no finish line to mean that they don't need to start.
Yeah.
And they don't need to do anything right now. And I would just like to say that's not what that means. And that's certainly not what we mean by it. And none of this that we're saying right now, we mean as an excuse to do nothing.
Yeah.
What we're saying is you don't have to be perfect, but you really should do what you are capable of doing right now and what you can do right now. Because I know from experience, if I just throw up my hands and do nothing, if you just throw up your hands and do nothing and say, well, there's no finish line, so I'll get to this eventually, you're just going to dig yourself into a deeper and deeper hole. And I dug myself into a hole so deep that I got type 2 diabetes because I just was not taking care of myself. And, so do what you can do right now. Do something. Yeah,
I did a Zoom in Wolt talking about investing in yourself and seeing yourself as a long-term investor in your health.
Yeah.
And with every dollar deposit year over year, you're compounding interest on your savings.
Yeah.
But Dana in the group, Wolt Chum, Dana.
Hello, Dana
in the group, talked about also if you can't save, if you can't afford to invest, you can at least not go further into debt.
Right.
So if you're in that hole that Donald is in, don't go ordering yourself a bigger shovel on Amazon to dig yourself deeper. So, analogies. We've been to Greece. We've dug holes.
It's been a wild ride. And there's been some hand jiving along the way. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate each and every one of you. And all of our episodes are available wherever you found this one. And also anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I won't keep going.
Even on Leap Day.
Even on Leap Day at weonlylookthin.com.
Yep, and if you are at weonlylookthin.com, you can click on the link for Join Our Support Group and find out more about Wolt Place, We Only Look Thin Place, our weight loss accountability and support group based on Facebook. It is a great place for support and working on your identity over your ideals. We have 2 subscription options. We have a monthly subscription with a 3-day complimentary trial and a 3-month subscription with a 7-day complimentary trial to see if Wolt Place is right for you.
And if you would like to interact with us outside of Wolt Place, you can find us on social media at We Only Look Thin on Instagram, Facebook, and the Twitter. And that's what they call it, right? And you can also type out an email if you so prefer. You can email us to weonlylookthin@gmail.com. Some topics may include episode ideas that you would like us to explore, compliments, nice things you'd like to say about us, even more nice things, accolades. And you can also ask us questions. weonlylookthin@gmail.com.
Yep. And if you have a couple of extra minutes and you identify as someone who loves the group, you can ideally leave a 5-star review and an actual written review with accolades, etc. Or you can just tell someone else about the podcast as well. That is a super duper big help.
Yes, word of mouth is one of the best ways that the show grows. If you know somebody or if you meet somebody who you think might get something out of the show, we would be grateful if you would tell them about us.
Yep.
So the next time you're trying to remember which way to spell Greece or Greece, just remember that Catherine and I are
an inspiration.
The information that you hear on this podcast is for informational purposes only. The hosts are not medical professionals. You should always consult with your doctor, nurse, or other certified health professional before beginning any diet or fitness program.